When you think of a soldier's meal, you might imagine calorie-dense, protein-packed fuel designed to power elite performance. But if you peeled back the foil on a modern United States meal ready to eat, you would find something else entirely. Processed meat substitute, artificial cheese spread, shelf-stable starch, and a brownie that could survive a decade in a bunker. Now rewind 2,000 years. A Roman legionnaire sits by a fire outside a wooden fort, grinding wheat by hand. His dinner? A rough barley porridge, maybe a wedge of salty cheese, a drizzle of olive oil, and watered-down wine called posca. No wrappers, no preservatives, just real food, made fresh, and yet somehow that meal powered him to march 20 miles the next day in heavy armor. It is easy to think we have advanced, that military food today is more efficient, more nutritious, more engineered. But what if we have lost something along the way? Something vital? The Roman army didn't just conquer with swords, it conquered with logistics. Their entire military machine was built around fueling the body, efficiently, consistently, and naturally. They didn't need additives or flavor enhancers. Their food wasn't meant to last. It was meant to work. So how did they do it? What exactly did Roman soldiers eat, and how was it distributed across an empire? And more importantly, why do today's soldiers get meals that could outlive a cockroach, but might not actually fuel them for the fight? Stick around. Because this isn't just a story about food, it is about the philosophy of fueling an army. And if you are into uncovering ancient strength in forgotten places, subscribe. Feeding the Roman army wasn't just a matter of handing out rations, it was a full-scale logistical operation, refined over centuries of conquest. This was an army that didn't just move across Europe, it built roads, forts, and entire supply chains as it went. And food was at the center of it all. At the core of a Roman soldier's diet was grain, usually wheat or barley. Every legionnaire carried a ration, typically around 1.5 kilograms of grain per day. But it wasn't pre-cooked, freeze-dried, or preserved. It was raw. Soldiers had to grind it by hand using a portable millstone, then bake it into simple flatbreads or boil it into a dense porridge called pulse. And that wasn't a bug in the system. It was the system. Roman commanders believed that making soldiers prepare their own food kept them disciplined, occupied, and resilient. It also meant the army didn't rely on external cooks or supply chains for ready meals. Everything was self-sufficient, down to the last ember. Supplementing the grain were small portions of legumes, cured meats, hard cheeses, and olive oil. Occasionally, they'd receive dried fruit, locally sourced produce, or a splash of garum, the famously pungent fermented fish sauce that was wildly popular across the Roman Empire. But the foundation stayed the same: high-energy, slow-burning fuel that could be carried for days, prepared with minimal tools, and eaten in any climate. It wasn't gourmet, but it worked, and more importantly, it was designed with the soldier in mind, not just to feed him, but to keep him moving. So how exactly did they organize all this? Who grew the food? Who transported it? And how did Rome feed an army on the march, thousands of kilometers from home? Feeding an empire was not just about what soldiers ate, it was about how they got it. And here the Roman military machine really showed its genius. Rome did not rely on a single centralized supply network. Instead, it built flexible, layered systems designed to adapt to geography, distance, and risk. At the base of that system were the Annonae Militares, the state-controlled grain supplies, supported by a network of contracted farmers, local merchants, and military requisitions. In newly conquered areas, legions often lived off the land. Once a region was secured, Rome quickly established permanent farming operations, supply depots, and transport routes. Grain was harvested in bulk, transported by mule train or river barge, and stored in enormous granaries, horea, which were carefully ventilated and elevated to prevent spoilage. In some provinces, these granaries could support tens of thousands of men for months at a time. And the roads, they weren't just for marching. They were arteries for food. A legion could be resupplied hundreds of kilometers from base thanks to Rome's astonishing infrastructure. Even at the fringes of the empire, soldiers had access to a dependable food system, not luxurious, but reliable. What is more, the system was decentralized by design. Each legion carried its own mobile supply unit, carts, animals, and support personnel, so they could operate independently for weeks. No backup helicopters, no emergency airdrops, just planning, preparation, and food they knew how to cook themselves. It was slow, it was physical, but it worked. And it raises an interesting question. What happens when we compare this hands-on, soldier-powered supply model to the way modern armies feed their troops today? Today, the modern soldier's meal looks very different. In the US military, most troops eat what is called an MRE, meal ready to eat, designed to last for years, survive rough conditions, and deliver around 1,200 calories per pack. It is engineered for convenience, not craft, and certainly not for freshness. Each MRE comes in a thick plastic pouch. Inside, a main course like pasta with meat sauce or a beef patty, a vacuum-sealed starch like crackers or rice, a synthetic dessert, powdered drink mixes, and a flameless heater. Some even include candy or chewing gum. Every item is heavily processed, shelf-stable, and designed to be edible, not necessarily enjoyable, for up to 5 years. On paper, it makes sense. Modern warfare moves fast. It is high-tech and unpredictable. Troops are flown around the world with little notice. You need food that packs small, stores well, and does not spoil. But here's the issue. While these meals are designed to meet calorie needs, they often fall short in practice. Troops report stomach problems, low energy, and appetite fatigue. They stop eating, not because they are full, but because they are sick of the taste. In 2019, a Rand Corporation report found that many soldiers regularly skip parts of their meals ready-to-eat rations. Not because of discipline, but because their bodies start rejecting the repetitive, synthetic nature of the food. It's fuel. But is it real fuel? It makes you wonder. If Roman soldiers could fight and march on fresh grain and cheese, why are today's most advanced armies still relying on meals that barely resemble food? The grain, oil, cheese, and legumes might sound basic, but they offered what the body needed most: sustained energy, gut-friendly fiber, minerals, and fats that sustained muscle through hours of marching, digging, and fighting. And the soldiers themselves were not just passive recipients of food. They prepared it. They carried it. They knew what they were eating because they had to make it themselves. A soldier's pila might have been his weapon, but his sartago was just as vital. Cooking was part of survival. Self-reliance mattered. Compare that to today, where military food is often something done to the soldier, not by them. Pre-packaged, mass-produced, delivered on schedule, then thrown away. There is no connection to it. No knowledge. Just nutrition delivered through a vacuum seal. Convenience has a cost. That shift changes more than just meals. It changes mindset. This is not to say Roman food was better in every way. Far from it. Dysentery and spoilage were constant risks, and no one romanticized barley porridge after 6 months on the frontier. But when the goal is endurance, not comfort, sometimes simple works. So what else did the Romans know about fueling for the long haul? And what can we learn from the way they balanced nutrition, mobility, and morale? Resilience was deliberate. How Roman soldiers ate during war could not be more different from how modern US troops consume their rations today. For Roman soldiers, meals were a moment of stability in a life that was otherwise defined by movement, exhaustion, and danger. Meals were communal. Soldiers cooked and ate in groups of 8, known as a contubernium. These small units shared a tent, a cooking fire, and a deep sense of responsibility for one another. Preparing meals was not just about survival, it was about bonding. Grinding grain, boiling pulses, and warming flatbread over coals was not efficient, but it was grounding. And in an age without phones or entertainment, these quiet routines mattered. Compare that to today, where modern rations are often eaten alone, on the move, sometimes cold, straight from a pouch. It is not anyone's fault. It is a byproduct of modern combat environments. But the contrast is telling. Even the food itself carried morale. Roman soldiers drank posca, a watered-down vinegar wine, not because it tasted good, but because it was reliable, hydrating, and even helped prevent scurvy. In many ways, it was the Gatorade of ancient Rome, cheap, functional, and designed to keep soldiers going. It became a symbol of endurance, of doing what worked, not what was pleasant. In today's military, MREs try to boost morale with candy, hot sauce packets, or fun components like jalapeno cheese spread. But those touches often feel like afterthoughts rather than a core part of the experience. The ritual is gone. The shared effort is gone. And sometimes, so is the sense of being in it together. Could that small daily connection, through the act of preparing and eating food, have been part of what made Roman legions so cohesive? And if so, what does it mean that modern armies have replaced that with vacuum-sealed calories and convenience? We have all heard the saying that an army marches on its stomach, but after everything we have explored, that phrase feels less like a cliché and more like a blueprint. Whether it was a Roman legionnaire grinding grain by torchlight, or a modern US soldier tearing open an MRE in the back of a Humvee, food is more than fuel. It is strategy. It is psychology. It is the difference between a body that survives and one that performs. So how did the Romans do it? How did they feed entire armies, thousands of miles from home, without refrigeration, without preservatives, and still keep them strong, disciplined, and able to fight? What made their logistics work? What made their food function? And what about today? We have global supply chains, state-of-the-art preservation methods, and precise nutritional science. And yet, we still hear stories of soldiers skipping meals, feeling depleted, or struggling with food fatigue. It raises a larger question, not just about what we are feeding our troops, but how. Are calories enough? Or is there something in the act of preparation, the rhythm of shared meals, the simplicity of whole food, that fuels more than just muscle? We are not here to romanticize the Roman diet. After all, they did not have to fight 21st century wars. But maybe there is still something we can learn. About resilience, about routine, about building systems that are built to last, not just to survive. So what do you think? Could a bowl of barley and vinegar wine really stand up to the engineered food of today? Or are we just looking at two systems shaped by different challenges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring how ancient wisdom stacks up against modern systems, do not forget to like and subscribe.